Welcome to our show. I'm Doug Johnson, and each month we present to you a Cleveland personality who will share with us their personal strategy for success. Today, we're very fortunate in that we have two Cleveland personalities with us. They are very unique individuals who work together on a daily basis while maintaining their own identities. So I would like to welcome today Denise Reynolds and Jenny Campbell.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thanks,
both of
Ed.
you. Welcome
Hello.
to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, Denise, let's start with you. Tell us about your background. Your license plate has cartoons on it. What's that all about?
Well, what that is all about, my background is for many years being a benefits communication consultant. So for almost 18 years, I've been helping companies communicate to their employees. Benefits, wellness, all those materials that a lot of employees just don't want to read. And many years ago, I thought, if we put cartoons with this, people would actually like to read them. So a few years ago, I met Jenny Campbell through Pet Fix Northeast Ohio. We both volunteer with that organization. And I asked Jenny, would she like to do some corporate work?
Great. And Jenny, what's your background?
Well, my background is drawing cartoons since the time I could hold a crayon, but then I came up through school and actually got a journalism degree. So I was a newspaper reporter out west in Arizona and California for about 13 years. And then at some point I thought, gee, I think I'll be a cartoonist. So I quit my job and I moved east to Philadelphia and started a career as a freelance cartoonist. I made $3,000 my first year.
Jeez.
It's gotten a little better. That was 26 years ago, and I'm fortunate in that I have a good business going now. I do a lot of different kinds of things. In addition to my work with Denise, which is really a blast, I have a syndicated cartoon strip, Flo and Friends, that runs in papers across the country.
I love it.
I illustrate children's books. I do all kinds of things. I draw little cartoons all day, and people pay me for it.
Well, that's
very
a
cool.
really good thing to do. It is cool.
Yes.
So how do you two work together? How do you produce learning vehicles via cartoons?
Well, I think what I had discovered a few years ago, I've been working with many different companies and organizations, and they all have the same frustrations. Is how do we get our key messages across to employees who they don't want to read it, or they're so busy getting messages in so many ways? How do you engage employees? And once I met Jenny, I thought, okay, maybe we can try this. And one of our first clients is Jergens Incorporated up in Cleveland. And the HR manager there said to us, I can't, she says, I've tried so many ways to get our messages across. I've tried everything. What do you suggest? I said, let's try a cartoon campaign. So what we did is created custom mascots for them. So it fits their organization. They make fasteners and holding devices. And we animate these characters. We put them into twice monthly cartoon panels with tips and advice. So we'll talk to them about benefits and wellness and safety procedures. And we've even named the characters Chip and Scrap. And there's always one character that never gets it right.
Yeah, there's always one doofus.
But it's fun because employees can relate to these characters because they're making these products all day long.
Right.
And so it's recognizable, and pretty soon they're looking for these characters. Almost to the point where a couple, 2 years ago, they asked if Jenny could come and paint the character on the side of some of their machines.
Right. We had been doing Chip and Scrap for a while, for a few months, and Chip is a quick lock pin, and Scrap, who's kind of the ding dong, is a flange, and so they came to the human resources director after a few months of these and said, how come there's not a female character? So we took a hoist ring and I created Ringlet, who is a female hoist ring with a little, kind of blonde beehive.
Is Blonde Beehive good or?
In cartoons,
is.
it's great.
In
In
cartoons,
cartoons.
it's great.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. What other characters have you created?
Oh, that's what's interesting about the work that we do. Nothing comes off the shelf. We customize everything. So for Akron Children's Hospital, we've got a whole crew of mascots there, but one of their key mascots is Petey, the therapy pony. And we do a wellness cartoon series for them based on Petey and watching Petey get in shape. And Jenny,
Yeah.
you could probably talk about.
Well, Petey's a real therapy pony. He actually comes into the hospital and visits the kids' rooms. And so I just did a sort of a cartoon caricature of Petey. And I did it actually for a benefits cartoon one time. And they came back and they said, he's really cute, but he's kind of chubby. So we decided that maybe he would be the character who would get fit and he would deliver the wellness message and he would get fit. So we started doing monthly panels of Petey, and it's a blast. I've drawn Petey doing Zumba, doing yoga. So we deliver all these wellness messages and eating healthy and things like that.
And I think what's unique about using cartoons and humor is that it's so disarming. Employees aren't used to seeing it. And actually, if you use it in marketing, people, it's eye-catching. And you're automatically thinking, what is this character doing? What should I be paying attention to? And so it's a great way to deliver key messages that you might not be able to get across that easily. So it does
any other
prepare.
Well, it seems to me then, from what you're saying, that this could go way back in time to the time of the cavemen and drawings on the walls,
Yes.
right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and-
Well, if you think about it, the cartoons basically predate written language because all the way back to the hieroglyphics and the caveman paintings.
Right.
Those were early cartoons, and it got the message across.
For sure.
If you're thinking about how many words fit on a piece of paper and you're overwhelmed looking at that, but if you can just summarize some of the key points of that article or that message.
And if it's humorous too,
Yes.
then all the better.
Right.
If you make them laugh,
You've got
you've
it.
got them.
Right.
I'm real excited today because Denise is going to talk and Jenny is going to draw. And we're going to see Jenny in action. And by the way, if you've looked at the opening to our show, I think you'll recognize Jenny's arm. So, Jenny?
Show us that arm.
Well, before I draw, do you want to show some samples of what we've done?
I think we can do that. See, a little bit of work. We've been doing some really great work with Akron Children's Hospital. And what we've done there, this is their new hire kit. So sometimes there's times when you just want a photo to deliver the message or to help deliver that message. But what we did is taken it and created some caricatures.
So turn the actual photos into
Right.
caricatures.
So these are some of the
Combine
materials that new hires would get there at Akron Children. So what we do is we create these characters and then we put them to work, delivering messages. And so that's Akron Children's. ACRT, which is a vegetation consulting firm based in Akron. And so what we do is put a forestry crew to work there. What's fun with them is they've got some woodland critters.
Yeah, we have the rookie forester and the veteran forester who deliver the key messages, and then we have these little critters like chipmunks and skunks and raccoons who are being ridiculous in the background.
This is Juergens, so this is Chip and Scrap, as we were talking about. And this is a policy cartoon that we did on the dress code.
Right.
Not always a easy topic for employees to adhere to.
It's not easy to put a flange in bicycle shorts either.
And this is Akron Children's Hospital, as we were talking about Petey the pony. So there's just a couple.
Petey getting fit.
Petey
Absolutely.
is got 4 pedometers on.
Yes, he is.
So that's a couple
Okay.
examples, but
All right.
let's put you to work.
All right, so we were talking about this before we got here, and we were thinking, let's say, for example, we started working with, say, a construction company. So the first thing we would do is we would throw around ideas for a mascot. So I was kind of thinking that maybe for a construction company, maybe we would have a mascot. Pardon my quick drawing here. But you want something that you can it's kind of cool, you can kind of animate it. And we thought, what about a hammer? Okay, so we've got this little animated hammer guy here. Okay, this is very quick drawing here, but you get the idea. So maybe we're going to have this hammer kind of delivering the key messages for this company. Okay, so, oh, he's got to have a mouth. There we go.
Well, sure. Otherwise,
Gotta
how
have
can
a
he
mouth.
deliver the messages,
You
right?
can't deliver key messages without a mouth.
Right.
Okay, so here's our ridiculous little hammer.
All right, so once we figure out what the mascot is for the organization, we then determine what are the key messages. You know, what do you want to get across to your audience, whether it's your employees or marketing. So let's say it's your employees and you want to deliver some wellness messages.
There you go.
So you want to put this hammer to work, and let's say the message is exercise. You know, we want employees to take care of themselves and get more exercise.
Right.
So let's see
So,
what Jenny comes up with here.
Let's see. Let's put him in a little headband because he's exercising here. So we have our little guy and he's delivering an exercise message. So let's say he's going to be jogging. Okay.
Well, I think it's neat that, excuse me, these hammers and animals can be used to really educate people. And as we talked before, it's education using humor,
Right.
and really quite a way to go.
Yeah, they've been doing studies on humor and on cartoons, and from the research, humor. You know, when leadership uses humor, or there's positive humor in the workplace, you're going to have better productivity, more engagement, more work group cohesion, less burnout and less stress. So
Right.
people worked better, and you're also going to have employees who are going to stay around longer.
Yeah, they're going to appreciate the fact that the company they're working for has a sense of humor, and it's important enough to them to use humor to communicate with the employees, and that means a lot to the employees. It really does.
Right, it does.
Yeah, it makes
does.
it makes an impact.
Okay, so what else can we draw?
Why don't we do one of the struggles I think a lot of companies have when it comes to health plans and employees using the plans correctly is getting employees to understand, go to the doctor or go to urgent care instead of going directly to the emergency room. You know, if you've got a cold or a sore throat, obviously if your arm's cut off, you should go to the emergency room.
Obviously.
But you know, so many times people just go to the emergency room without it really truly being an emergency. And then what happens is, you know, it delays times in getting served at the emergency room, and also you might not have that claim paid from the insurance company.
Right, and it's that's something that companies time and time again will tell us is a really, I never realized that that's such a big deal for companies, but apparently it really is. And so this is a message we're asked to get across to the employees again and again and again.
So we always like to put a character in a non-emergency scenario, and then what our cartoon panels do, we put the cartoon together, and then we usually have advice, tips, and additional resources that print below the cartoon panel.
He pounded his own finger.
Uh-oh.
Ow.
How did he do that?
Oh, it wasn't easy. So the other thing that we can use these for is not just for the employee communications, but also for marketing.
Right.
It comes in handy for marketing too.
Okay.
So we can use the same characters. We've had companies in the past where we've created mascots for the employee communications, but then they've said we want to put this out in the world and help market the company. So you know, we can do that kind of thing for them too. We can, let's see. Right, Denise?
Yes.
Yes. So let's say this construction company now has asked us to, about other ways that we can use these guys, or use this guy. And so what we tell them is, in marketing, we can come up with a message, and here, his little hand is back here. Okay.
So many of us can relate to seeing cartoons in advertising and marketing, and I think we tend to watch those more avidly than one with
Right.
one of us.
Well, I mean, you think about some of the biggest brands out there, and you think of Tony the Tiger, and
Right.
so many cereals that have a character with them, and it's you recognize those characters immediately. Pink Panther with the insulation from Owens Corning, those kind of, even Smokey the Bear. Smokey the Bear has been around for 60 years,
Yeah.
and you automatically know his phrase.
Yep,
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a branding
Exactly.
type thing.
So
and
all
a lot
of
of
a sudden, then you can use the same characters for your branding, your marketing, stuff like that.
So the lesson here really is to use humor through cartoons to make a point. And humor in learning is so important. We can all relate to that.
yes.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what do you think about that comment?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I remember a couple of years ago I met with a client, and she was very interested in doing a cartoon series. And as I was showing her samples, she says, I have to admit to you, she says, I don't get cartoons. I don't understand them. I don't really like them. But I know that 99% of the population loves them. And that is just so true. I think from the time you're very young,
Right.
you just love watching cartoons, whether it's an animated cartoon or picking up a comic
Right.
book.
Right. I always like to say that people say, what's the coolest thing about being a cartoonist? And there are so many things. But I always say one of the coolest things about being a cartoonist is that I can be at a party, a cocktail party or something, and the snootiest person in the room can walk up to me and say, so what do you do? And I say, I'm a cartoonist. And just for a split second, that person is 5 years old again, and they say, really? Cool. So that's fun.
It is, and you're so
is.
fortunate to be able to do that
I am. I
and
really am.
bring joy to so many people.
Yeah, it's fun.
Going back to the idea of learning through humor, when I was in college, I was a psychology major, and one of my classes was behavior modification. The one class where everybody did their homework every night was a behavior modification class. Our hero was Captain Con Man, short for contingency management, and our textbook was about 2 inches thick, and it was a comic book.
Oh, that's great.
And everybody did their homework.
I
So,
bet they did.
are there any studies or statistics that relate to learning through comics?
I think they don't really have definitive stats, but what they are showing is probably 30 to 60% more readership or viewership when you use cartoons.
Okay.
So when you do show cartoons with your materials or use an animated piece, people are going to
You're going to attract
they're
more
going to
attention
read
than
it
you
or
would.
view it and get more out of it.
Right.
So, what's the other side of the coin? We as consumers, what should we look for in a cartoon? Where can we go with a cartoon?
The thing about cartooning is that it's completely subjective. So, the cartoon strips that you read in the paper, you'll have your favorites, I have my favorites, you may love one that I can't stand. Humor is so subjective, but the key is we're all looking at it. We're all reading it. And we're all making our own little judgment calls about it. But the point is we're all reading it. They say that in journalism, there's an old adage that an editor, a newspaper editor, would rather jump off a bridge than ever have to change the comics page. Because they can redesign absolutely every other part of the paper, and they'll get a couple of calls. You pull one cartoon strip out,
Yeah.
And the hue and cry is unbelievable.
I had to do that once for a daily newspaper I was working at. I was the
Right.
city editor. It was awful.
It's awful.
You pull one because
Yeah.
you think, oh, nobody's reading that one.
When I got my cartoon strip Flo and Friends, the Columbus Dispatch added me, and they dropped Prince Valiant to add me. Prince Valiant, I didn't know
Had been
anyone
around
even
forever.
ran. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hue and cry was so, they got so many calls and letters that they had to bring him back, and he runs in the classifieds now.
Oh, geez.
I
So-
think what's really cool about cartoons is it hits every age group, all cultures. You know, everyone enjoys to laugh.
Well, Jenny, talk about Flo and Friends for a minute, because that's one of my favorite strips.
Thank you.
And well, you're welcome. I can relate to it because my mom is soon going to be 88. And it seems to me, I know your mom is around that same age.
87.
It seems to me that is real life, and we all are there. We can relate to
Absolutely.
the comic strip.
Yeah, the cartoon strip it's an ensemble cast, but it's based around this group of seniors, senior citizens, and I always say I'm becoming my own demographic group. I mean, you see the hair, and so it's becoming a lot more autobiographical than I'm sometimes comfortable with. But I'd go home to Arizona to visit my mom, and after I got the cartoon strip about 10 years ago, and she said to me one time, you know, I used to think you used to like to come over and visit me, but now I see you're just doing research. Because it's true. She lives in an assisted living home now in Arizona, and I go there and stay with her, and I carry a notebook around. I'm like, because I get a lot of gag ideas.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And then Treggy, who is very young.
She's the
and
teenager
how
being
does she
raised by
fit
her
in there?
grandmother.
Okay.
She's sort of an old soul, but she's still a teenager, so she loves the oldsters, and she has a wonderful time with them, and a lot of great comedy comes out of her, because she's at that weird stage of life where she's trying to be older, but she's still a kid. So, you know, she can pout and then be incredibly wise all in the same 3 frames.
Neat.
It's fun.
If each of you had to give our audience your strategy for success in life, what would it be?
I'll go first.
You go first.
I guess one tip I would have is just listening. You know, really develop listening skills. As a
Okay.
consultant, you learn that. But I think, you know, just as a human, to be able to listen fully, and by that I mean it's not just waiting for your turn to talk, but really being engaged in that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
think a lot of times too, if people don't listen and using humor, which is what we're talking about today, they don't get it
Right.
because they've heard, but they've not listened.
Right. Yeah. And I think one other thing for me would be, you know, life is short. Make sure you do have fun.
Yeah, and laugh.
Jenny, what is your tip?
My tip is really you find something you really love to do, and if you persevere and you hang in there and you really believe in it, you really can. You can make it be what you do for a living, and you can make it successful. And if it is fun, it's not like working. It's like getting up every day and having a hobby for a job. And it's really, and you can find real happiness doing that, and you can find real success. I tell kids in schools all the time that people tell you as you're going up through school, if you love art, you know, oh well, you know, you can't make a living as an artist. Well, yeah, you can. Yes, you can.
And have a good time while you're doing it.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Are there any books that people can look at, and again learn through humor, through cartoon strips? I mentioned, you know, my textbook. Well, that is probably out of print at this point. Jenny, I know you draw for some children's books.
I do a lot of
And
yeah, I've done 16 children's books. To appreciate cartooning, I think you just want to read as many cartoons as you can, as many cartoon books as you can. I think one of your suggestions
Yeah,
is
it's Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
Just a classic. I'm just a
Right.
big fan of Calvin and Hobbes. I
Right.
love his style and his humor. And I
Right.
would say read every
yeah,
every
Calvin
script
and
that,
Hobbes is
that
awesome.
Bill Watterson has done.
Right, Calvin and Hobbes is awesome. I'm a huge Edward Gorey fan. I have that kind of dark sense of humor sometimes. I love, there's an old British cartoonist named Norman Thelwell who passed away in his 80s a few years ago. And I've collected his books. He does these wonderful little pen and ink cartoons of kids riding ponies, and like riding etiquette, and they're hilarious. And I think if you enjoy cartoons, you just read as many cartoon collections as you can get your hands on.
Well, and again, it's a reflection of real life.
Absolutely,
And I think
the
that's
best ones are.
right, and I think that's why we enjoy them so much, is because it is real life,
Yeah.
and we can reflect on that. And
As a cartoonist, the greatest compliment anyone can ever pay me is to cut out one of my cartoon strips, and I walk in their house and I see it on their refrigerator. That's cool.
neat, neat. Well, Denise and Jenny, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks for having us.
We all love cartoons, and I think what you're doing is just bringing another level to our everyday life. We're also stressed looking at cartoons in the office, on the shop floor, and having a little humor with it really can make our day.
Does bring your blood pressure down.
There we go, another benefit. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you, Doug.
Did you know that common sense often presents itself in the form of humor? Let's take the case of Maine residents, often called Down Easters. For obvious reasons, they live down east. Typically, Down Easters are very practical, commonsensical people, and they display humor. They don't think they're funny, but sometimes their responses tend to be. For instance, a Maine resident is asked if he has lived in Maine all of his life. The response, not yet. Another example, does it always rain so much in Maine? Does it ever stop? The answer, always has. So what do you think? Commonsensical humor or what?